All right. As long as Jerry and Al, you're all set, we've got, okay. I'm going to go ahead and start unless somebody tells me not to. All right. Good morning. I'm Dave Sullivan, Chairman of the Flagler County Board of County Commissioners. Welcome to you in attendance. So along with me, we have the other commissioners, except for Joe Mullins and our attorney, Al Hadid, and County Administrator, Jerry Cameron. This will be a regular Monday meeting that we have each month, but today we'll be doing it virtually. And please bear with us on that. And I'm going to go forth with announcements. To start with, if you wouldn't mind, I guess you can stand at home. I've got a little flag here. You've got one there. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and start the Pledge of Allegiance. So I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. For our normal moment of silence, I'll first say that we ask God to bless all the citizens of Flagler County, especially the men and women in the military around the world, standing watch to maintain our freedom. Here at home, our brave first responders, police, fire, and medical personnel who keep us safe, away from danger, and secure in our homes. Nothing could be more appropriate than what I've just said, given the terrible corona disaster that's going on right now. So those words mean as much to me today as they ever will be. With that, I'm going to go forward with additions, deletions, modifications to the agenda. The first addition, and I would ask the commissioners who are with me right now to just say I concur after I get done with this first addition. I will also be asking the board for consensus to instruct the county administrator to assess the impacts of the pandemic to businesses renting property from the county. If he determines that they have been unduly impacted by executive orders or local restrictions, he will authorize a rent holiday up to 90 days. This will give those businesses time to apply for federal relief. So with that, I'll poll Charlie, do you agree with that? Charlie, can you hear me?
I think Joe Mullins is signaling that he cannot hear anything. I've called Lucy. She's going to make contact with him. And Charlie, you're muted. Let me unmute you here.
Okay. Did the commissioners who are on right now, did you hear the addition I just made proposed?
Yes, I concur.
Okay. Charlie, do you concur?
Did you hear me? Yes.
Okay.
I agree. Yes, sir.
Donnie, are you on?
Yes, I concur.
Okay, and Joe, did you?
Hello.
I can see you, Joe, but I just can't hear you. It's four yeses, because I say yes also. So we'll go ahead and say that that's been done. And once we get Chairman Commissioner Mullins up, we'll get back to him. But that's four yeses. So we've got enough concurrence on that. The next item is, I want to read this carefully. Also, I'll be asking the county attorney under his report to explain for the meeting record the background of our emergency order for virtual meetings. I'll itemize the specific meeting standards in a moment after under announcements by the chair. So Al, you're okay with that?
Yes, sir.
Okie doke. Now we were going to do an addition, and I'm still a little unclear, but at least we'll preview that we may have to ratify a proclamation declaring a state of local emergency in Flagler County, Florida, related to forest and brush fires. I think we're going to just let you know that may be coming, and we'll get back to you further on that. Is that correct, County Administrator? Jerry, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I just wanted, as far as the proclamation on forest and brush fires, I'm just announcing it, and we'll see if we actually need to vote on that later.
That is correct. Should we need to do it in between commission meetings, there's a process for us to do that and have you ratified.
Okey doke, just a few more announcements from the chair, and then we'll get on with Congressman Waltz. Announcements by the chair. We ask that you be patient with us today as we hold our first virtual meeting. There will be no live comments from the public today. There is no meeting room. Everyone from the commission and county staff are participating remotely for reasons of public health and safety. As posted with our meeting notice, members of the public can email or phone in their comments prior to or during the meeting, and the staff member will read them into the record. I will read the notice into the record. Please bear with me. We are required to do it since this is our first time. Pursuant to Florida Governor's Executive Order 20-69, the Flagler County Board of County Commissioners will conduct its regular meeting on April 6, 2020 at 9 a.m. using communications media technology. No members of the public will be permitted to enter the Government Services Building or the board chambers. No person will be in the board chambers. Interested members of the public will have 4 options to view the meeting. Option 1, view the meeting broadcast live on cable television, Spectrum Channel 492. Option 2, view the meeting streamed live on the county's YouTube channel. Go to www.flaglercounty.org. That's www.flaglercounty.org and click on the YouTube icon. View the meeting using the Zoom app from a PC. This is option 3. View the meeting using the Zoom app from a PC, Mac, iPad, iPhone, or Android device. Click zoom.us/j/283845854 to join. I'll repeat that one more time. Zoom.us/j/283845854 to join. Option 4, call 312-626-6799 or 929-205-609 and enter webinar ID 283-845-854 before or during the meeting. Let me repeat all those numbers again. Call this is option 4 by telephone. Call 312-626-6799 or 929-205-6099 and enter webinar ID, which is 283-845-854. Those last 6 numbers are interesting that they wrote them like that. Interested members of the public will have 2 options to submit comments for the record regarding any matter on the agenda or for matters not on the agenda. Option 1, send comments by email to publiccomments@flaglercounty.org before and during the meeting, and they will be read at the meeting. 450 word limit, and assuming emails are received timely. Option 2, call 386-313-4001 before or during the meeting to provide comments not to exceed 3 minutes. Comments will be summarized and read into the record. That number to call is 386-313-4001. Please make sure to listen to all instructions given by the moderator or the chair. Non-essential county meetings continue to be canceled until further notice. That's the end of the notice. How to proceed with the rest of the chair's announcement. Boards, which is now back to normal procedure. Boards and council vacancies. Flagler County is soliciting registered voters residing in Flagler County for the following citizen volunteer boards and chambers: Affordable Housing Advisory Committee, Contractor Review Board, Library Board of Trustees, River to Sea TPO Citizens Advisory Committee. Positions are open until filled. Please respond as soon as possible for consideration. For further information or to reply, please visit www.flaglercounty.org. Advisory board vacancies or for advisory board vacancies, or contact Marie Davis, the email of mdavis@flaglercounty.org. Telephone number for her is 386-313-4094. That's 386-313-4094. Upcoming commission meetings, workshops, and special meetings. Regular meeting, Monday, April 20th at 5 p.m. will be a virtual meeting, as is this meeting, subject to any modifications that are announced in advance of that meeting. That completes the chairman's announcements. We'll go on now with the regular meeting. Okay. The very first, excuse me, the first item that we're going to go to under recognitions, proclamations, and presentations will be a COVID-19 response update by our great Congressman, Michael Waltz. So Congressman Waltz, if you're there and up, please go forward.
Great, thanks so much, Dave. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine.
All right, fine. Well, thanks so much. Good to join everyone today. I'll be just a few minutes. I have fortunately a hard stop in about 12 minutes to do some other media, but I did want to call in, make myself available, give you a quick update. I don't know how much is new on top of what you've probably seen on the news, but there were three main components in the CARES Act that we passed a little over a week ago out of the House of Representatives and the President signed. You all, I'm sure, have heard of the individual tax rebates. The Treasury Department is still aiming to get those either direct deposited or in the mail by April 9th. I've held a number of telephone town halls and teleconferences with chambers. A consistent question we get on the individual rebate is whether Social Security or other types of disabilities are still, disability recipients are still eligible. And they absolutely are, as long as you are under 75,000 or 150,000 in terms of income levels by your 2018 filing. The Treasury Department and the IRS are still working through a number of issues for those that do not have information on file. It was a little bit confusing in that initially for many folks, particularly seniors who had not filed as of 2018, they were wondering, the seniors anyway, how the Treasury Department, IRS would have their information. And initially Treasury put out guidance for folks to do an amended filing. That has now been rescinded. And essentially, if you're receiving funds through the Veterans Department, if you're receiving funds through the Social Security Administration, Treasury and the IRS are working with those other agencies to import the information and continue to get the checks pushed out. I'll have to tell you, in all candor, I am hopeful in their ability to execute, but this is a massive undertaking. And I do think folks that have filed as of 2018 and either have a physical address or banking information on file should receive those funds. Again, $1,200 in the next week or two. And again, that's $1,200 per person, $500 per child. I am concerned about the migration of that information from other agencies. I think we all know how much we all struggle with government IT. I know we have a lot of wonderful professionals out there trying to make it work, but I am a little concerned there, and we're in regular consultation with the Treasury Department in getting that in place. The other piece is the Paycheck Protection Program, the PPP, that has also been on the news quite a bit. That opened up on Friday. Again, the banks, Treasury is doing something that is completely unprecedented and moving this much money this quickly, trying to get those funds out to small businesses so that with the goal of helping them keep people on payroll. The parameters for that program are on my website. Actually, for all of these programs are on my website. I would encourage small businesses, if they are not already in consultation with their lenders, to do so. The Treasury Department is endeavoring to work this through the commercial lending sector. Some banks are prioritizing businesses with which they already have a relationship before taking on new clients, and some are also prioritizing those with which they already have a lending vehicle in place, just again in an effort to triage and to get monies out to businesses as fast as possible. My understanding, and I'll have a call later today with the Treasury Department, is there have been some hiccups between the banks and the SBA with their E-Trans system, and getting those computer systems between, again, the commercial lending sector that is receiving applications from the small businesses and then translating that into the Small Business Administration system. So again, I would ask everyone, I was a small business owner myself and built a company from scratch up to a pretty substantial business. And I completely and deeply sympathize with those who are doing everything possible to try to take care of their employees. And I know the IRS, the Small Business Administration, and the Treasury Department are working around the clock to make this system work as fast as possible. That's not to make any excuses for anyone. I have seen in previous natural disasters, all of us have, the federal government take much longer to get these types of programs up and running. I think in this case, they're trying to build the plane while flying it and try to get those monies out. I just want to briefly talk about a few other provisions of the bill before I run out of time that hasn't received as much attention. But one is for those seniors who are of age where they're receiving mandatory distributions, where they essentially are selling their retirement assets into a very down market because they're of the required age. That is suspended. You do not have to sell those assets in at this point. And then there's another provision where you can receive up to $100,000 out of your retirement account if needed for some type of COVID-related emergency without the typical 10% penalty. There are also a number of debt relief and debt forbearance provisions in the federal bill. We all know Governor DeSantis has also released some executive orders on delaying and forbearing evictions and other types of debt from the state perspective. So I would encourage everyone to look into those different provisions. Again, all aimed towards helping businesses, in particular small businesses, keep cash on hand, keep employees on their payroll as much as possible. And then there were some other provisions of the bill that were aimed more at critical industries, like the airlines, providing liquidity to banks so they can provide that loan forbearance and other pieces. The legislation was 800 pages. I do have a 35-page summary on my website. Again, that's waltz.house.gov. And we are also providing updates as various agencies put in place what they call implementing mechanisms, which are the details of the various plans. The other thing I just want to mention are National Guard and reservists. I've been working both in uniform and out of uniform. I'm still serving National Guardsmen in getting some of their issues resolved and working with our Adjutant General, General Eifert, whose headquarters is just up the road in St. Augustine, to make sure that our mobilized Guardsmen and women are receiving the same TRICARE medical benefits and the same housing allowances as their active duty and reservist brethren. I cannot imagine a situation where we have our Florida guardsmen and women out on the front lines, possibly getting sick from the virus and not receiving the exact same full benefit package as everyone else in uniform. So I expect a decision. I've been in direct contact with the White House on that, and I've been working again with the Guard Bureau, the Pentagon, and the Florida Guard to get that rectified. If you have any constituents who are also mobilizing in the Guard and are concerned about that issue. I want to give just a few other pieces aside from the legislative. Our district director, General Ernie Audino, who has just been absolutely wonderful in touching base with all of the emergency operations centers, the directors of emergency management, and others for the 4 counties that I represent. I want to give a special shout out to the Flagler Director of Emergency Management, John Lord, and his wonderful program and pushing out information. Again, we see across a number of counties that we represent and others. And I just have to say, it truly is one of the best. I want to thank Bob Snyder from the health department for joining me on the telephone town halls. We've had anywhere from 9,000 to 12,000 people call at any given time, calling into those town halls with a whole variety of questions related to economic relief, and then of course health related questions that Bob has been wonderful in helping. And then, another function, and I'll just stop with this, that I've really found us providing, both General Audino, our caseworkers in our Palm Coast office and in our other offices, is really just being a connector. We have local businesses out there that have retooled in an effort to not only keep their employees employed, but also to provide a need. Fit USA is one in particular down in Ormond Beach, and we that have retooled their uniform production into PPE production, and we've managed to connect them now with a number of hospitals and with emergency management systems, including Flagler's. I was just on the phone for a long time last night with the CEO of Advent Health, and we've managed, they are directly contracting with that company and a number of other companies that are providing lab equipment, personal protective equipment, and a variety of other types of services that our hospitals, our first responders, and others need. So I just can't thank all of them enough, but I also, our door is open. If you're having a hard time, either you have a need or you have a product you think people need, we are happy to provide those connections as much as humanly possible. I think just the last thing I just want to reemphasize in terms of getting information out, we are keeping our website updated as much as possible, and we stand ready, particularly from our caseworkers in our offices. Give us a call if you're having a hard time. We can't solve every single problem that's out there. Unfortunately, this is truly a historic, as we all know, unprecedented crisis. But we stand ready to try to connect you with the various federal government agencies to the absolute extent possible. And then finally, I'll say, look, I've been in a number of foxholes, as many of us have who have served. I kind of make the analogy that the enemy's bullets, they don't discriminate. They certainly don't know or care about socioeconomic background or race or religion, and they absolutely don't care about political party. And this virus doesn't discriminate either. And that means we all have to link arms. I have been, a silver lining in all of this. I have just been overwhelmed with what I've seen in our community in terms of our community coming together and linking arms to move forward in the face of this. So I can't thank everyone enough. With that, I'll stop and let you get on with county business where the rubber truly meets the road. God bless you all, and for any questions that anyone has, we'll be sure to record those and get back to you. Okay, thanks so much, everyone. And I think with that, I'll stop.
Congressman Walz, Michael, thank you very much for taking the time. You've been super generous with your time both before the coronavirus and since, trying to help out here in the local area. And we really do appreciate that. And good luck to you and God bless you.
Okay, God bless everyone. Absolutely.
Okay, we'll go on with presentations. Jonathan, are you available? You're up next to emergency management update by Jonathan Lord, our emergency management director, who's absolutely doing a great job for us here in the county.
Thank you, sir. Just want to verify with a thumbs up from someone that you all can hear me. Excellent. Thank you very much. Good morning. Your EOC has been activated daily since March 17th, responding to COVID-19. However, we've been working on it well before that, but we formally activated on the 17th. During this time, we have been anticipating and responding to constant recommendation and guidance changes from the state and federal government, up to and including the governor's most recent Safer at Home order that took effect last week. Additionally, locally, we have issued the following emergency orders: beach and park facility closures, e-signatures and electronic documents, isolation of travelers from COVID-19 hotspots, vacation rental suspensions, and the most recent one being the virtual meetings, which you all kicked off with this meeting. Your government has implemented restrictions on entry to our facilities, as well as new work from home and sick leave policies, some of them driven by changes at the federal level. Specific to COVID-19 and the impacts on your workforce, we do currently have 2 personnel on Emergency Family and Medical Leave Act, 3 on sick leave, 9 on paid administrative leave, and 20 staff working from home. We have incurred over 30,000 additional personnel costs and almost 175,000 in expenses directly related to COVID-19, and expect to continue those numbers to continue to increase. However, we do expect that we will be getting FEMA reimbursement for much of those expenses incurred to responding to COVID-19. Our first responders continue to modify their approach to suspected COVID-19 calls to limit their personal exposure. We also continue to communicate regularly with our EOC governmental and nonprofit response partners, which include all constitutional officers, our municipalities, Advent Health, the school district, Daytona State College, a whole host of nonprofit groups, and the Florida Department of Health, who truly is the lead and a great partner in the public health side of this. That's really not the county's purview, the health side. It truly is the lead coming from the Florida Department of Health on updated guidance, testing, and all of that. And they have been great partners with that and are at our sides constantly. We continue a public information campaign on traditional as well as social media. We've been using tools such as Zoom to even do press briefings to limit our exposure and the media's exposure to COVID-19. And our first Zoom-based press conference, actually, I did not expect it to go live because we weren't sure about the video quality, and actually a couple of the Orlando TV stations as well as one of the Jacksonville stations actually picked up the feed live and were comfortable enough with the video and audio feed to let it go live, which was great. I think that really helps us get the message out to the community. As we sit at this moment in time today, the Florida Department of Health data, which is the only official source of data here in Florida, shows that the state has a cumulative total of 12,350 cases and a cumulative total deaths of 221 deaths. Here in Flagler County, they show us having a cumulative total of 31 cases and 1 death. And the key reason I keep I'm mentioning the word cumulative a couple times is just for the public to be aware that the totals they see on the media and on the health department dashboard that is readily available, it is a cumulative figure that will only go up. It is not the current active cases. So there has been some misinterpretation of some of that data I've seen on social media, just to help educate our public on that. We continue to work through the ability and permission to offer up a drive-through testing site in our community, in addition to the multiple options already available to our residents, which include through their regular healthcare providers, urgent care centers, the Florida Department of Health, and we are also lucky, probably one of the only communities that is less than 90 minutes from a pair of regional testing sites, one in Jacksonville and one in Orlando. I get it that 90 minutes is not the most convenient thing, but there's not many communities in the country that can say that they're that close to 2 federally managed and state partnered testing sites so close to them. We are also keenly aware of the social and economic impacts this is having on our community, and we are sharing resources as fast as we can validate them and making them available to our greater community, both on the personal and business side of things. And and making sure that we can get that out. There's been tons of information pushed from the state of Florida as well as the federal government on unemployment as well as small business assistance. Sorry about that. Phone was ringing. And just in ending on my brief here, just during this unprecedented event of a lifetime, I can't thank all of our partners, you all, our municipalities, again, all the health department, the Florida hospital for helping us continue to do the right thing and being a step ahead of this. I think a step ahead of many communities around our state. I think we seem to be a little bit more aggressive in some areas than others, and some of that additional step forward has allowed us. I'm hoping that some of that directly relates to the fact that we have been able to have our curve and our growth rate be slightly less than the rest of the state of Florida and some of our neighboring communities. I don't have a direct scientific relationship to that, but we have been a step ahead with things like closures and other limitations and public messaging. And I'm hoping that is part of the reason that our community is growing at a slightly slower rate. So with that being said, I open it up to any questions or clarification that you all may have for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Do any of the other commissioners just kind of raise your hand? I don't have the other if you'd like to speak. Vice Chairman Mullins would like to speak.
I just want to say that I'm really proud of the staff. They're doing a great job, and a lot of public feedback about the confidence in our county. It's phenomenal that we have been able to stay at 30 cases when the counties above us and below us are way in hundreds. It's just a relieving, stress-free time to see that staff is doing this great, and a lot of people telling me how safe they feel in the community with the communication. So keep up the work.
Any of the other commissioners, just raise your hand and I'll. Okay, seeing here, and Donnie, of course, you'll have to say something. Okay, with that, if there's no other comments, at that time, we'll go on to the community outreach portion. Now, of course, this is a unique situation this time. We still have a 30-minute time period been allocated for public comment, but that'll have to be done virtually. So the moderator, do we have any input on that needs to be read?
Hi, Commissioner Sullivan. This is Lucy, Administrative Assistant. Mari and I have been compiling the public comment through via email and phone. So if it's okay, I'll go ahead and read what we have.
Go ahead.
Okay, so first we have received approximately 20 comments via phone and email regarding the beaches. I've summarized the points because there's not enough time to read them all, and we will post them in their entirety later. So in summary, they would like the commission to reconsider allowing people on the beach for mental health, walking, running, swimming, surfing, fishing, all while maintaining social distancing. Additionally, they feel walking on the beach is better than walking on the streets and safer. They said to go ahead and keep the parking lots closed, don't allow towels, chairs, or umbrellas, anything that would encourage anybody to loiter. They said maybe only open at certain times or intervals. They said that people have more chance of getting sick at the store. They are on board with ticketing egregious offenders, and they would like you to follow what Volusia is doing. So that's all I have for the beaches. And then I just have 4 other comments. Jane Tintel-Yude sent in the following comment. I thank you with all my heart to all county employees who have and are risking their own health to make sure our county still functions. And then here's some other points she put with stars. The 4-time overpriced using our personal money to buy a decrepit water system to the over 5,000 people and businesses it serves. Next comment, the insane voting to add 97 more homes with no parks, sharing 2 exits with existing 5,000 residents to the same community you stuck with that with the still unpaid loan of $6 million. The insane purchase of the contaminated hospital, the Sears building, and the prefab barn out west. The insane giveaway to the owners of Captain's Barbecue, allowing them to lease our taxpayers' land for rent less per month than one night stay during NASCAR. for not shutting them down after being in violation with their lease and county health department with 30 seats too many and using my tax money to settle an insane lawsuit filed against the county. But nothing has more upset this commission, allowing innocent taxpayers and homeowners to be daily victims of flimsy, noisy, least safe aircraft flying on top of their homes and using an airport owned by the county all hours of the day and night, touch and goes, and who knows what the pilots are. Does anybody? The hell with the funding crap. It is all the chairman of Embry-Riddle's Aviation being allowed to fly his flimsy, noisy, low-flying planes with unknown people as chairman of Embry-Riddle Flight School, and the commission allowing him to destroy the peace, the welfare and safety and health of the nearby homeowners. The same businessman who also owns Venture ICI, this entire commission just granted permission to further destroy the quality of life and open space Plantation Bay was originally designed for, allowing him 13 years of time extension since 2007 to build a tiny guardhouse while he has the funding to build hundreds of new homes with no open space, no parks, in addition to the ongoing water issue. Stop the flight schools now, close the airport if you have to. You don't have the right to destroy innocent people's lives for any amount of money. Shame on you all for allowing anyone to come before we the people. And that's it for Jane's comments. Next comment is by Gillespie. Is the lottery an essential business? People are just going out to purchase tickets. I understand this is revenue for the state. If Governor DeSantis delays it, he may save a life. Next comment by Susan, no last name. When is Flagler going to test all of these sick people running around? Numbers released are low only because they are not testing people. Why aren't you fighting for more testing in Flagler? I knew numerous very sick people begging for tests and they cannot get tested. They have all of the signs and symptoms, but nobody will test them. Horrible example of that is Dorothy Strickland. How sad she had to go to another county to get tested and then it was too late. That alone should change things here. Flagler needs to step it up. This is absolutely ridiculous. Releasing low number of cases in Flagler is false information. Also, self-isolation is a huge joke. People will not self-isolate, and allowing all of those people from hotspots into Florida and just asking them to self-isolate, what a joke, crazy. Self-isolation does not work. You will see the damage if they ever test here or when people start dying because the virus is here and it's being spread rapidly through grocery stores and some of the so-called essential businesses that are open. If Florida had curtailed Bike Week, the races, and spring break, maybe we would have had a chance, but the almighty dollar was all the officials cared about and it's going to come back and bite you. Officials should have closed the beaches before allowing all of those out-of-towners to spread the virus and then go back to their states and spread there too. This could have been contained, but the money was all that mattered. And for what? The economy is destroyed and the people. Where is the sensible leadership in Florida? Too bad nobody cared about the people. Dr. Fauci has been warning everyone for months, but people in charge didn't listen. What a mess. Now allowing cruise ships with 6 people from other countries into Florida. Sure, just fill up the hospitals with non-residents. Just bring all the sick people here. Come on down, because Flagler doesn't have many cases, right? COVID idiots. The next comment is from Ben Torres. We have a new neighbor in our neighborhood on Cemetery Road in Bunnell that has brought their business with them. It is a landscaping business with many big trucks full of land debris, which we think that is illegal. There's lots of dust from the trucks full of debris as the road is a dirt road. The neighborhood used to be peaceful and quiet. We contacted Flagler Code Enforcement before, but with this virus, no action has been seen. Still, lots of big trucks keep dumping on Cemetery Road. We are wondering if the county could check if this new neighbor has a permit to dump landscaping on this road. Thank you. And then I have 2 more lengthy emails, both regarding the beaches, but I'll just email those to you. That's it
All
for
right.
the comment.
Okay, Lucy, thank you. I think I'm going to go right to our county administrator, Mr. Cameron, for comments. There were about 5 or 6 comments there. A lot of them had to do with some type of partial reopening of the beaches. So maybe you could start with that.
Yes, sir. The folks that are writing about the beach, I understand that they want to use the beach, but their sole criteria is that they want to use the beach. We are reviewing that every day with a partnership meeting, and at least once a week, we are discussing that. We discuss every time that a surrounding county makes a change in what they're doing, because those changes affect us. And if in fact, it was just our folks that were out there walking, practicing social distancing and being responsible, then they are correct that that would probably be a beneficial thing rather than a detrimental one. But what we have seen across the state is that if you permit people to go on the beach in one area when other areas are closed, that you get an influx of people from the outside that come into the county, which we would prefer not to have happen in any case. And when they get on the beach, they do not practice good, safe practices. They don't do social distancing and they don't do group control. That is the reason that we originally closed those beaches, is that because the health department and the Flagler Beach Police Department observed unsafe practices, and they were primarily from folks that were not residents. And so the determination was made to close those beaches. We do review that on a periodic basis, and there's nothing that we'd like to do more than to open those beaches because of the positive things that folks have talked about. But when you have a lot of unintended consequences from doing that, and it's not a simple thing of that fresh air is good for you, you have an invasion of sorts, then we are maintaining it because we simply don't have enough law enforcement to go out there and enforce this. This is a really, really critical situation. We have been very fortunate in keeping our numbers low, and a lot of it has to do with getting in front of this and taking measures to keep the spread to a minimum. We are also doing things outside of closing the beaches that have had this effect. It's important to realize after Jonathan's comments that our partners are meeting every single day in video meetings, and we discuss the latest numbers that we have. We discuss the trend lines for the state versus the trend lines for our county. We are doing very, very well with that. Our curve has been much flatter. In recent days, we have seen the state line begin to flatten some, and that's positive. If that maintains itself for another week or so, we may well have a more optimistic outlook than we've had so far. But nobody wants to deprive people of the right to use the beach or any of our facilities. It is strictly for safety. When you have people that are dying in large numbers in the state, we have only lost one here, but we have had about 14 hospitalized. It's a serious situation. And just as soon as it looks prudent to do so, we'll recommend to this Board of County Commissioners that these beaches be opened and our other facilities be opened. But we're practicing extreme measures with our employees. You can't get into our building without having your temperature taken. without answering questions about where you've been and what your current health is, and putting sanitizer on your hands before you can even come into the buildings. We've sent everybody home that can work from home and set them up to do that virtually. We are being very, very careful with the rest of our employees. And we ask that this is a good time to display citizenship rather than to think about what you aren't being able to do because of the measures that are necessary to protect you. We ask for your support because with that, our employees are a lot less discouraged than when continually criticized for exposing themselves to danger and trying to do what is the best practices to protect you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Cameron. I did want to, this is a big issue based on the amount of input we're getting. So I did want to give the other commissioners a chance to speak on this subject if they would like to, but you have to raise your hand. Okay, we have Vice Chair Mullins. Go ahead when they bring you up.
No, I just wanted to kind of cover a few things real quick. As far as testing, I'm hearing in other counties, we're not doing any more or any less testing than they are. The testing is rare to come by. It's just not something that's available out there. It's also takes some time and it's getting overflowed. So I would like Jonathan to kind of talk about a little bit about testing and kind of kill that myth, because I really think we're seeing lower numbers because we're following what we're supposed to for the most part, and we got ahead of this. The second one is the beach closings, and I'd like to read this on record. I've had a tremendous amount of emails. I've replied to every one of them, and I've replied this, and I've had many come back and agree after I say this. And this is from being in contact from an email chain with the big businesses and the hotels. And I'd like the other commissioners to know this, so you know when you're hearing this, what's kind of going on. The hotels around the area, a lot of them have run rates just ridiculously low right now to attract business and traffic. I've had a tremendous amount of people asking me if we're going to open up our area from surrounding areas. In the radio show and stuff, they've said that they are looking for something to do in the day and wouldn't mind staying overnight. And this is the reply I've had. I'm keeping a close watch on this. I am thankful our rate is 29 to Volusia's 134 and St. John's 132, which this was as of yesterday. So what we are doing seems to be working. My fear is not the locals, but people who will flock in from other areas. I have had many inquiries asking when hotels and beaches will open for tourists. Some hotels are running very low rates right now, trying to draw any business they can to survive. We are going into what some will say is our worst week. I encourage everyone to hang on a little longer. And I've had many people respond once they hear that, saying they agree and they see that. I've had a few say, why can't we just open their section of the beach and not others? Problem there again, if you open one thing, it's going to flood in to that area. And that's what I heard happen in St. John's. They were late in closing their beach, and they had a tremendous amount of people come down from Duval, and then all of a sudden their rate shot up. I've also had one of the commissioners in Volusia reach out to me and ask if we consider opening our beaches, that they're getting a lot of traffic and they think it would help balance it out. So I'm real nervous about opening the doors to everything right now. And then the final thing I had about these planes right now, I don't see that as an issue. I mean, everybody's saying it's unsafe. How many accidents have we had in the air in Flagler County? I mean, I don't know how you deem something unsafe when we haven't had accidents. So I just don't see that. And, so I think now's not the time to really even look at something like that. We've got 100,000 lives considering on us. But that's all I got on those comments.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mullins. I believe we did have a plane that crashed into one of the houses out near the airport a few years back. Now, any of the other commissioners who would like to comment, then we'll get back to our county administrator because there were other questions there that came in. So just raise your hand if you'd like to make a comment. I don't see any. Yes, Jonathan.
Yeah, since Commissioner Mullins asked about the testing from one of the questions, multiple questions he's gotten, and we do get a lot of questions on testing. At this point in time, the in-county testing that is available is some people's family physicians, regular doctors can do it. Urgent care centers can do it. I believe it's 3 urgent care centers that we have in the county can do it. If you're an inpatient in the hospital, or ER for something else, or are extremely sick, they can do it, though the hospital is not the right place. The ER is not the right place to do regular testing. There are also 2 regional sites in Orlando and Jacksonville that are open up to anyone in the public, and their threshold for testing is extremely low. And we are working diligently to get approval and supplies to be able to do a in-county drive-up testing. It's not something communities our size typically would get permission to do, but we've worked through that process, and in partnership with a couple staff from the health department will be there, because again, it needs to be medical staff that does the testing. Testing in general is not the county's bailiwick. It is not something that we do, but we're working through partnerships with the health department, Advent Health, a whole bunch of volunteers, some retired medical personnel that are going to help us, if we can get the supply of testing kits, help us stand up a drive-through testing site. Its #1 priority will be for first responders and healthcare workers. And then depending on the amount of available kits, we will open it up to symptomatic people as well. But there's a lot involved in that. Again, typically smaller communities, not that we're small, we're a solidly entry-level, middle-sized community. Typically that is not what is done in our size communities, but I've been pushing hard to be able to offer that up to our unique community, especially with more at-risk people, a higher percentage of at-risk people than many other communities. You may see other sites popping up in some of our neighboring counties. At this point in time, some of those, like in Volusia and even down in Brevard, they are privately run testing sites. Nothing stops a private entity from spinning up a testing site as long as they're licensed and certified to do so. So we are trying our best to get into that business and be able to obtain those supplies and authorizations.
Chairman, let me ask Jonathan 2 things. Jonathan, you send out a picture that shows how many people have been exposed. I've had a few ask us if we can include some positive stuff in there. One of them is how many are actually hospitalized, and then one of the biggest ones is how many actually have recovered from it, recovered from the COVID, because we seem to only mention the people that are getting sick, but not that they've bounced back or they're recovered. I don't know if we've got a way to chart that. And then the final thing would be testing versus other counties. If we can have some kind of comparison showing that we're in line with, we're not just the only county at this testing rate, it's other counties as well. So I don't know if there's a way to do that.
We'll try our best to modify the graphic. I mean, we're trying to make it so it's visually appealing. We are including a link to the more detailed data set that the health department puts together where folks can do some analysis on their own. There's tons of data there. The actual number of people testing, I don't necessarily want to put that out there because it's not a true number. It's a partially low number. So the testing figures are only the ones that the health department is aware of. So if you go to your doctor and your doctor swabs you and sends it off to a lab, the health department doesn't necessarily get that as a number, an additional number in their testing. So that could be happening by the tens or hundreds. And unless you pop as positive, the health department may not get that actual figure. So I would say the testing numbers are artificially low because of how that system is. They're not required to report tests if it's done in the private sector. They're only required to report positive cases. So that's there's a slight misnomer of the way that number is, but there's no actual solution to that because of reporting mandates or lack of reporting mandates. But for the other stuff, we'll try to find a way to fit it in that daily graphic that we're putting out.
Yeah, I think it would be positive to show how many recovered. You kind of wonder what's happening with people afterwards. So,
okay. I wanted to get back to our county administrator because there were a couple of other questions there. And if Jerry, if you had any additional comments, any of those, we go forward with that. So go ahead if you can.
The questions that I was familiar with or remember from the public comment was the one with the landscaping company moving into a neighborhood. We will follow up on that. The one with regard to activity at the airport, we sent out a courtesy request to flight schools to limit their activities during this crisis in light of the fact that people were confined in their houses. We had across the board compliance with that request. We had, in fact, Emory Riddle absolutely stopped all of their operations here, and the others have seriously curtailed it. And I am told from folks that I have monitoring it that it's much better out there than that. I don't think it was mentioned, but it may have been at the Old Dixie Hotel where we are on it. Enforcement action has started. The owner is attempting to pull permits to renovate the facility, but we're not sure whether or not that's something that they really intend to do, and we are proceeding as we outlined to do that.
Thank you, Jerry. I just wanted to make one comment. Be very careful, all of us, unless you're an expert on statistics in comparing one county to another. The way the national government does it, they prorate it per 100,000 per community. In other words, your rating, if a county is 5 times the size of us and they have 5 times as many cases as we do, that mean we about even. So be very careful on how statistics are used here, and I like to depend on the experts on that, because there's many ways you can cut and slice those numbers. With that, I don't see anybody else with their hand raised. Donnie O'Brien, did you have any other comments to make, since I can't see you?
No.
Okay. All right. I'm going to go on to the rest of the agenda. So the next item on the agenda is the consent agenda and constitutional officers. So at this point, we have no requests from the community to remove any items from the consent agenda. So I'll open that up, poll through. Charlie, did you have any items to add to the agenda? Go ahead, Charlie. No. I can't hear you. You're still muted. In order to do this, I have to poll this. So Charlie, I think you're on now. Go ahead. Consent agenda items.
I have none to pull.
All right. Commissioner Hanson?
I have none.
Commissioner Mullins?
None.
And Commissioner O'Brien?
None.
And I have none. So with that, bringing it back to the commission, I need a motion concerning the agenda, concerning the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, Charlie Erickson has a second. Bring it back to the public. I don't know how we do public comments on this, but Lucy, do you have any anything on that? Hearing none, bring it back to the board for any additional comment. If not, I'm going to go ahead and move that we approve the consent agenda as contained in our meeting agenda. So those are items 6A through 7F. We have a second. Any further comment?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr. O'Brien.
I would just recommend that when we do these votes, we do them by, just poll us individually. This way, it's less confusing for all of us. It's just a suggestion.
That's what I was trying to do.
Okay, that's fine.
So with that, we have a motion on the floor for vote. All those who approve, and I'll take you one at a time. Mr. O'Brien,
Aye.
Commissioner Erickson,
Aye.
Commissioner Hanson,
Aye.
Vice Chair Mullins,
Aye.
and I say aye. I think I got everybody. So that passes, any negative, there are no no's. That passes unanimously. We'll go on to the general business agenda. And the first item is the Dunes Restoration Funding discussion. I do have an input from one of our citizens. And I'll just ask our county administrator, should I go ahead and read that first, or would you like to do 8A before I give the comment?
Go ahead with the comment, sir.
All right. This will take me a little time to read, so bear with me. It's in relatively small print. This is item 8A, Dunes Restoration Funding Discussion. This is from Elizabeth Hathaway, and she lives in Flagler County off John Anderson. Flagler Beach A1A property owners, protect your property and our beach. Hurricane season begins on June 1st, less than 2 months from now. Recent hurricanes washed away most of the natural dunes that protected your property, beach and A1A. Unless you protect your property, you'll probably lose more of it this year and every year in the future because more hurricanes will come. Don't remain a victim of giant waves, surging tides, and 100+ mile-per-hour winds. Don't buy into the negative attitude that you are helpless. Hurricanes will come, but you can mitigate the damage, restore your property and our beach when the winds and waves subside. Please today sign the easement that was mailed to you and grant the United States Army Corps of Engineers permission to begin restoring the sand dunes on your part of the oceanfront. Flagler County has an agreement with the United States Army Corps of Engineers to replenish the natural dunes from South 6th Street to South 28th Street in Flagler Beach. The sand needed to build up the dunes will be pumped from a offshore ocean bottom site 10 miles out. Native vegetation will be planted on the restored dunes. The $7.5 million project will be paid entirely through state and federal funds. The actual value of the project, including the ocean bottom sand, exceeds $18 million. The Corps of Engineers will come back for the next 50 years as needed and restore the dunes without additional time-consuming delays or permitting. In parentheses, your taxes will not increase, nor will your dune walkover be damaged or jeopardized, close parentheses. Protect your property, your neighbors, and our beach. If you own oceanfront property between South 6th Street and South 28th Street in Flagler Beach, please sign your easement now. Give your consent for the Army Corps of Engineers to restore the dunes along your property. Once this project is completed, your property and that of your neighbors will be safer and more valuable. All of us will be able to enjoy a wider, more resilient beach. At last count, 80% of your neighbors have signed their easement. They need you to join them in a united front. The ocean does not discriminate. If you let it, the ocean will take everything from all of us. Any gap in the dunes will create a weak point that will undermine your neighbor's dune protection on each side of you. We will be stronger if we are united, facing the storms to come. If you have any questions, need another copy of the easement or assessment to notarize and witness your documents, call 386-313-4040. Flagler County has created an easy-to-access website, www.shoreuptheshore.org. That's www.shoreuptheshore.org/. This site provides detailed information, frequently asked questions, and easy to understand explanation. Thank you from the Preserve Flagler Beach and Bulow Creek Incorporated. So that was the input on item 8A from Ms. Hathaway. I'll now go back to Mr. Cameron to discuss 8A dunes restoration and funding discussion.
Yes, sir. I asked for this to be brought to your attention in a meeting because there has been a change of circumstance due to the COVID-19 virus. As you know, the dunes restoration was predicated on being able to secure a $6 million match for the federal funding for this project. Our county engineer was successful in getting the DOT to provide that match for us. They have been very good partners with us on a number of projects, and they committed to the match. In the contract where they committed to the match, there is what attorneys refer to as boilerplate language that they have in every contract. One of those, and I believe it's clause N, stated that the funding, ultimate reimbursement to the county, was predicated upon legislature providing the funding. Normally, that clause is not a concern. That's not a concern because the transportation fund is considered pretty sacred, and there was not much of a problem in anticipating risk from doing that. However, the COVID as the state's funding sources, which primarily is sales tax, the extent of that is unknown. Also, the state is expending large amounts of money. This has resulted in a situation where we are going to have a special session probably in May or June. It is absolutely certain that this budget will have to be completely reworked that they just passed in light of these developments. They are going to have to sweep some funds. We don't know which funds. We're told that the Transportation Trust Fund would be the last place that they would go to sweep funds, but nevertheless, it is a possibility. Should that happen, what would occur is that Flagler County would be exposed to a liability of $6 million, which would severely damage us at this point because we're financially weakened because of the storms, the virus, and the economic downturn that we've never recovered from completely. So we are working with FDOT to try to arrive at some methodology of ensuring that Flagler County would not be subjected to that unfunded liability. And we've made some progress. I was hoping that we would have that in place by today, but we do not have it in place at this time. And I thought that before we proceeded any further with this, that the Board of County Commissioners would need to review their previous decisions in light of these developments.
All right. Thank you, Jerry. Now, I have some thoughts on this, but I'd like to go back to the board to see if, or our county attorney, whoever would like to comment on this, if necessary, please raise your hand. All right. Mike, Donnie, I can't see you, so did you have any comments concerning this?
No.
Okay, my only comment back is this, that I don't think we should stop trying to get the easements done. I think we should proceed forward with that. And I did read a fairly detailed discussion on the budget by Galvano, who's the head up at the state legislature. And his feeling was that this year's budget, the one that's on the governor's desk right now, will not be as affected as next year's budget. So I think we may, who knows? I mean, as our county administrator pointed out, you know, things happen. He didn't indicate that there would be a full rewrite of this year's budget, that it's that would be very, very difficult if you went back to every line item, so on and so forth. So I agree in principle with what our county administrator said, but I don't think for this year's budget, there'll be as much change as could happen. And a lot of that has to do with how much money comes in from the federal government to support the COVID-19 problem. But those are just my thoughts based on what I've been reading also. Did anyone else have any? So I'd like to at least push on with getting the easements done and be ready to go forward if it looks like it's okay to do that. So I guess for my attorney, at this point, is there a need for a motion or just basically this information is out there for information until further notice? So Al, do you have any thoughts on that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think that the board simply authorizes Mr. Cameron to continue to work with FDOT until we obtain satisfactory assurances that these monies are immune from that kind of budget shifting, so that we are not placed in an untenable position where we're going to owe the $6 million to the Army Corps, but have the legislature remove it from the FDOT budget, leaving us on the hook. We have explored a number of alternatives with FDOT. We haven't gotten back a final answer. I presume, I don't want to assume too much, but I presume the board does empower the administrator to address these kinds of intergovernmental issues in protection of the county's interest. But if the board feels more comfortable, they can provide that guidance or assurance, and obviously Mr. Cameron can request it.
Al, just what about the easements? What would be your recommendation? Should we proceed on going after the easements?
Absolutely, for two reasons. One is that they are permanently allowing restoration and repair of the dunes whenever that occurs. So to have them in place is important. Number two, proceeding with the dune work also will protect the federal allocation that has been made to us, and obviously would be consistent with the matching funds that FDOT has provided us. As you know, one of the main reasons advanced by the county engineer in successfully getting FDOT to break one of its standard positions, that is not to provide local matches, but here they did, because Faith Al-Khatib persuaded them that this was an investment, long-term investment in protecting their state right away.
Yes, Mr. Cameron.
Yes, you know, I'm not asking the board for any specific action on this. I just think it would be remiss of me if I didn't bring to the attention of the governing body that the risk factor has shifted. And if you make a decision to proceed and assume the risk, that's an informed decision. I just didn't want something to happen down the road and the board say, why wasn't this brought to our attention?
All right. I think what you're really asking for us to do then is based on what you and Mr. Hadid have said, the board would concur with those comments and we would proceed bearing those warnings as stated. Now,
yeah, that's essentially, if you're ratifying our course of action, that we are going to proceed with the FDOT to remove this risk, then having that direction I'm taking ratified would be helpful.
all right.
Chairman Sullivan and County Administrator Cameron, I apologize. This is Jared Shoup, CIO, Flagler County. I have Mr. Brower that would also like to comment, it appears, he raised his hand in the agenda item.
Mr. Who?
Mr. Brower, Finance Director, Flagler County.
Oh, yes. Okay, yes. Go ahead. Go ahead, please, Mr. Brower.
John, go ahead and unmute.
I'm not hearing anything.
This is Carlos in IT. I will go check on him. I'll be right back.
Okay, in the meantime,
Hear me now? Can
did
you hear
somebody say something?
This is John Brower, Financial Services Director. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I apologize for that. Just wanted to make sure in conjunction with the easements moving forward, that the funding is also going to be moving forward, and that we have a payment, at least at this point, due the $6 million that we've been talking about on April 27th, meaning that all the paperwork and approvals and whatnot that the board needs to get that commercial paper would come to them on the April 20th meeting. And so there's a lot of work that has to be done in the interim to make sure that's available at the 20th. Is that, you want me to move forward with that? Is that correct?
I think so. If anybody else want to comment on that, that sounds like what's going to have to be done. Anybody just have any comments concerning that?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, we definitely need to have that in place if we're going to move forward. As I pointed out to you some time ago, that we were unaware that we were going to have this cash flow issue, and our finance director has done a masterful job of accommodating the cash flow situation, but he will need to put these programs into place in order to meet those deadlines. I assume that since we're presently expending money on easements and so forth, that deadline is going to be pretty firm.
All right, back to the, unless Mr. Bauer has anything else to say, John?
Mr. Chair, no, I'm good. I will move forward. Thank you.
Back to the board, however, I want to give each of the commissioners a chance to speak if they want to raise their hand, or Donnie, if you want to, just speak up before we concur or non-concur on kind of the discussion we've been having. Mr. Hanson, Commissioner Hanson. Go ahead. Unmute Commissioner Hanson.
Can you hear me, Dave?
Yeah, now I can.
Okay, I agree with you that we need to move forward with this. I think it's too important to let it slide. So my position is we should move forward.
All right, any of the other commissioners wanted to, we're going forward with consensus on this, not a full motion. Anyone else, please raise your hand or speak up. Mr. Erickson, unmute. All right, there you go. Well, I thought you were. Go ahead, Mr. Erickson. He needs to be unmuted. Go ahead. We can't hear you, Charlie. You're still muted.
Here, let me unmute him on my side.
Yeah,
There you go. All right.
Go ahead.
yes, let's go ahead.
All right. Donnie O'Brien
Yes.
and Joe Mullins. I don't see Joe's picture up here.
Can you hear me?
Now I can hear you. So
All right, no, I'm 100% go after this federal money. I mean, we need to bring it back to the county, so let's do it.
all right. So we have consensus to go forward as the discussion went back over to the county administrator. Is it clear to you where we are right now?
Yes, sir. I am, just to reiterate, I am to continue my efforts with DOT to ensure that the county is not financially at risk, and that the securing of easements and other financial processes are to continue as before.
All right, that completes item 8A. We'll go now to item 8B, new Sheriff's Operations Center discussion, and that's back to the county administrator, Mr. Cameron.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Originally, this was going to be an update on where we were with the new operations center. And we are proceeding along with the design process on schedule. As I had pointed out earlier, that any changes in location, because I had been asked by that, would have to be done before May the 1st. Otherwise, we would incur a financial cost as well as a time delay. Since I explained that deadline to the commission, several commissioners have questioned the location of where we are going to put the Sheriff's Operations Center in light of the fact that we are now in another financial difficulty, and financial future is more uncertain. Consequently, I was asked if both the library and the Sheriff's Operations Center could be located on the same site here next to the EOC. And I turned that over to engineering. Engineering produced drawings showing that the site could in fact accommodate that. And I have supplied those drawings to the board for their review. The rationale that I had heard is that this would allow us to sell the property in Palm Coast and help to offset some of the cost of the new op center and the library, because we already own this property here. I bring that to you today for any further comment that you might have, any direction for me to change direction that you might have, and a general discussion.
All right, thank you. Are the other board, I see hands raised. Commissioner Hanson, you're up next. Hanson, unmute.
Yeah, Dave, I think that this new alternative of putting both the library and the Sheriff's Ops Center in the Bunnell location has many more pluses than it does minuses. Not only does it allow us to sell the property over in Palm Coast and get some money from it, but it would allow us to use the old bank building as the sheriff's substation in Palm Coast, a building which we already own and is about somewhere over half finished updating for the sheriff's use. So there's a lot of pluses to doing this, and I'm very much in favor of co-locating the library and the Sheriff's Ops Center in the Bunnell location.
County Administrator, you had your hand up too. I've got two other commissioners on the line.
Yeah, I failed to mention that the sheriff is monitoring this, and I think would have the ability to speak if y'all should want to ask him an opinion.
If we have the Sheriff Staley, if you're there, this probably would be a good time to speak, and then we'll get back to the commissioner's comments. I have two more commissioners who want to speak on this at least.
Mr. Chairman, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Rick.
Okay. I think Commissioner Hanson laid it out perfectly along with the county administrator. I fully support, if you will recall, over a year ago now, the location that you're talking about was my number one choice because it's a logical location. It's near the courthouse, it's near the EOC, it's near my communication center, it's near fleet, it's near fuel. So all the things that we need to operate are there. And then in addition, you have the bank building that has been gutted and then stopped. And you've already done the design work on the interior and to finish that. And in my opinion, if you try to sell it, now, you will not get what you have invested in it because of its condition. Somebody's just going to look for a fire sale. So I think the best deal for the taxpayer is to co-locate us on that property on Commerce Drive for the reasons I've stated. Finish the project, the old bank building on North Old Kings Road, and do that timely so I can get out of the current lease that we're in, which I think has another year and a quarter to go, maybe a year and a half, and time that so we save money there. And then if you have a buyer that takes some of the burden off the taxpayer, I think it's a win all the way around as a taxpayer and sheriff.
Thank you. Thank you, Rick. With that, I think saw Charlie Erickson, you had your hand up. John, mute Mr. Erickson for comments on this.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I just wanted to make sure that everybody's read this Jim Ulsimer memo that we received email talking about the design of putting two buildings together, etc. I mean, if there's room for the two of them there, but I'd like to make sure that everybody also agrees or has an opportunity to comment on Jim's comments that he made in that separate email that I received.
Right, I did also receive that, and I talked to him by phone. That is available if someone wants to read that. Lucy, do you have that available?
I have it, David.
I have it also. For the board, should I just give you a thumbs up? Should I go ahead and read it? Okay, I'll go ahead and read
I
it.
already read it.
What?
This is Commissioner O'Brien. I already read it.
Okay. What's the desire? I can go ahead and read it or not.
As I said, my purpose in bringing it up was just to make sure that all five of us got a copy of this and had the opportunity to read what Jim's comments were.
Okay.
Yeah, I've read it, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, this is the sheriff.
Yes.
I have not read it, so I don't know what it says. If somebody could email it to me.
It doesn't take me that long. I'll just read it, and then it's out there and on record. This is from Jim Ulsimer. I would like to make a few comments about the use of the land. The idea of using the land for multiple purposes was always a consideration, and given the nature of funding availability, joint use of the land might make it easier to secure funding for both. The earliest discussions about the library designs suggested that there should be flexibility to expand the library in the future if conditions warrant. Building up is not a good option given the huge weight of books and shelving and access concerns for very young and elderly. The current layout shows the police station in the forefront and the library in the rear. This observation is based on expected traffic flow. If you were a retailer, you would want to be visible from the best road as possible. I ask you to consider the following. A library is a place where large numbers of citizens want to go, while a police station is often visited for other reasons. Do you want your traffic facing municipal structure to be a library or a police station? I know what my preference would be. Perhaps the final design can give both structures adequate space and proper visibility and access. This idea sprung up with no opportunity to examine in any detail and at a time when everyone is focused on COVID-19, and maybe it is not under the purview of the library trustees, but a little extra input never hurts. That's my 2 cents worth on short notice and with relatively little information. I'm asking that if you approve the concept, due consideration be given to the needs of the library and many patrons. Thank you for listening, Jim Ulsimer. I did talk to Mr. Ulsimer directly on this. He's not against the concept, and we have a long way to go as far as the final design on having both units located in the same location. So that's a comment from the outside, head of the Library Commission, Board of Trustees.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I could say one thing, is I'm fine with that. And I think the county has selected Architects Design Group, or is in the process. And they're experts in this area and site planning and design. So I would say let's leave it to the experts, because I'm sure, you know, at some point, the Commerce Drive is supposed to be a bypass at some point, some years down the future. And that'll have to be taken into account when the site plan is designed. So I think everybody can work there and be fine.
County Administrator?
Yes, I just want to point out the question is would both of them fit there? This is a very preliminary measure that was taken to do this drawing to show that yes, in fact, you could get both of them there. And we were able to accomplish that without a further expense because we did it in-house. But ultimately, the design will have to come from the architect, and I'm sure there will be some modifications. The only question that we are answering for you with that document that we sent you is that, yes, we can put those buildings on there.
Right. Commissioner Mullins, you had your hand raised.
Yeah, as far as moving the sheriff's office, I'll give you my real estate view of it. I've always been, we've needed to do something with the library property. I've always been favored to do something with it, but traditionally in counties where we've developed in, the sheriff's office has not been in prime locations like that. And one of the main reasons is the congestion for the traffic. The people, they need to be able to get in and out continually. There needs to be a flow. And over there at Belterre and Palm Coast Parkway, there seems to be, that's a heavy area. It's a great located area, but again, you want that more to commercial and more to what's growing. I think the majority of our growth, we've seen the most of our growth right there. The majority is going to come west of US 1 and south of US 1, south of 100. So we're going to see a lot of growth there. So that's one of the reasons. The biggest reason I am in favor of this is it puts the sheriff's office back in the town, town seat, Bunnell, which I've had a lot of people stress that means a lot to them. So for something like this to occur, I think would be a win-win on many parts, and we'd be able to put it back to where it goes. So I'm 100% for seeing it go back into Bunnell.
Donnie, did you have any further comments on this? Commissioner O'Brien?
Yes, sir. Thank you. My main concern, yes, I've been not on the video. It's been a conscious choice. Okay. You'll get me when you get me. I did speak with the administrator about this, and I'm in concurrence of wanting to move this direction. My main concern is that we don't lose momentum. I understand we're in uncertain times right now, but just as soon as we can continue to move the resources in that direction, I want us to do that. And I don't want us to have to pay 1 penny more in rent up in Palm Coast if we don't have to. But again, I understand we're in uncertain times right now. So that's my comments.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Brien. Now, I think we've all had a chance to look at this. We've heard the county administrator, we've heard Rick Staley and the
Can I make
library board of trustees.
One more, David.
Yes, go ahead.
I spent a lot of time with the prior administrator, and my recommendation is that road that's in there presently, in and out, is going to be totally inadequate for any growth in that particular area. So I want to make sure that we give some extra thought to that road. That road may, of course, go all the way to Route 1 on the other side there. So, but those roads right now would be inadequate to me, in my estimation, of the extra travel or extra traffic that's going to be on those roads. But I would say let's go forward, but let's also think about the in and outs.
Right. Okay, I'm going to bring this back to the county administrator. But first, I just wanted to ask a question, and that is, has our library administrator been made aware of this and kind of understands what's going on here? And that's back to the county administrator.
Yes, sir.
Okay, doke. So Again, I don't think this is a motion at this point. I think it's more of a concurrence that we proceed down the lines of using the site for both the Southern Library and the new Sheriff's Operations Center out here in Bunnell. Is that kind of what where we are at this point, and what the guidance you need, County Administrator, to go forward?
Yes, that the county attorney is comfortable with that. Since it is an agenda item, I think you could probably take an official action, but if concurrence will suffice, I understand your direction.
So Al, comment on that?
Yes, the item is properly before you and you can take action. You may want to codify your action by a vote so that the county administrator is empowered to do all the things that would be required to make the shift. And that would reflect itself in the contractual documents we use, the activities of county forces, et cetera.
Okay, that being the case, I'm going to bring it back to the commission for a possible motion.
I'd
Mr.
like,
Chairman,
I'd
Mr.
like to make
Chairman?
a motion.
Oh, wait.
I'd like to make,
Hold just 1 second. All right, Commissioner Mullins, go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to move the sheriff's operation from the library to the over by the county building off 100.
Mr. Chairman, I think a more appropriate motion would be, I move that we co-locate the Sheriff's Op Center and the library in the Bunnell property, and that we sell the property over in Palm Coast.
For further discussion, Mr. County Administrator.
You may want to add to put the sheriff's Palm Coast substation at our existing bank building.
And Mr. Chairman, I would add that to my motion.
All right. Any further discussion from the commissioners? Basically, we're going to use the words of Commissioner Hanson added with the added point that the county administrator made, that we would use the existing bank building in Palm Coast for the substation for Palm Coast. Does that make sense? If so, I need a second.
Second.
All right.
Are we seconding mine or the other one?
We're seconding the, I said, we'll second the Commissioner Hanson's explanation because he added in a couple of things that were not in yours, but it's essentially the same motion. Okay, further discussion on that. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I don't see anybody raising their hand. If not, all those in favor of the motion, which would to designate the site in Bunnell for the Sheriff's Operations Center and the South Library, with the idea that we would then sell the property that exists back in Palm Coast next to the current library and use the bank building that we already have purchased for the sheriff's substation in Palm Coast. If that's correct, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 I guess I've got everybody up now, but I think I probably should go back and do a formal vote on this. So I'm back to Commissioner Erickson.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Commissioner Hanson,
Yes, aye.
Commissioner O'Brien,
Aye.
Commissioner Mullins,
Aye.
and I say aye. So it passes unanimously. We'll now go on to additional items, 8C, which is they're both 8C and 8D are going to be quasi judicial. Have each of the commissioners looked at this document and be able to, I'm going to poll you now for any judicial or interference that you might feel necessary to discuss before we go on with these items. So I'm clear with nothing on these two items that would affect the vote. We go to Mr. Erickson.
None.
Commissioner Hanson,
None.
Mr. Mullins,
None.
and Commissioner O'Brien.
No ex parte communication, none.
All righty, thank you. With that, Adam, are you on the line, and can you start with item 8C?
Yes, sir, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Adam Engel, Growth Management Director. Item 8C is application 3202, final plat for Los Lagos at Matanzas Shores. It's a 15-acre property with 65 lots, previously approved through its preliminary plat in January 2018 by the Board of County Commissioners. The plat itself consists of 2 pages. We go to the next slide, please. A title page, and then the next page there is the plat itself depicting the 65 lots. 65 lots have been checked to ensure that they conform to the approved planned unit development agreement. We are in possession of a performance bond and a maintenance bond. The maintenance bond being provided to us on Friday in the form of a cash bond payable to the Board of County Commissioners. Staff finds that all of the needed criteria have been met for the consideration of the final plat by the Board of County Commissioners. The recommendation is to approve with conditions, deny, or to table. And Mr. Chairman, with that, I'll await any questions or comments. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Adam. Lucy, who's covering this, do we have any correspondence with witness citizens wanting to discuss this particular item?
No, sir, we have no public comment for item 8B or 8C.
All right, then I bring it back to the board for a motion. You got to unmute Commissioner Hanson.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve item 8C.
We have a second.
Second.
Second by Mr. O'Brien. Further public discussion on this? Motion has been made and seconded. Okay, anybody on the any of the commissioners or our county administrator need any further discussion on this, or our lawyer? So I'm hearing none. I don't see anybody raising their hands or trying to speak. So with that, I'm bringing it back to board to approve item 8C, application number 3202, request for final plat approval and acceptance of performance and maintenance bonds for Los Lagos and Matanzas Shores, 1 subdivision. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Wait, hold, I'll poll. We'll start, Mr. Erickson.
Aye.
Mr. Hanson.
Aye.
Mr. O'Brien.
Aye.
And Mr. Mullins.
Aye.
And I say aye. It passes unanimously. Mr. Mangle, we have so that item 8C passes unanimously. Item 8D, which is another quasi-judicial item. And again, we need the ex parte indicating that you have no special interest or been not approached in any special way. So I'll go through the commissioners again on this. Mr. Erickson, ex parte.
None.
Mr. Hanson.
None.
Mr. Mullins.
None.
Mr. O'Brien.
None.
And I have none. With that, Mr. Mangle, if you could go forward with the 8D item.
Yes, sir.
3203.
This is application 3203 for Los Lagos and Matanzas Shores 2 subdivision, a 23 lot subdivision on 8 acres south of the Los Lagos 1. This property lies south of San Juan Drive in the location depicted on the aerial photo now on your display. It also consists of a 2-page plat. First page being a title page along with the dedications and reservations. Next slide, please. And then the following slide being the graphic depiction of the 23 lots. This too has been checked by staff to ensure that the lots conform to the approved plan unit development agreement, and that the final plat is consistent with the preliminary plat presented to and approved by the board at its January 2018 regular meeting. We have received the performance bond, and as of Friday, received the maintenance bond as a cash bond in the amount of $10,830.54, consistent with the agenda memo. Staff's review of this request finds that all the criteria have been met for the board's review and approval of the final plat, with the possible actions of the board approval with conditions, denial, or tabling. With that, again, Mr. Chairman, I'll close and await any questions or comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Back to the board. I'm looking for raised hands to discuss item 8D. Seeing none raised, I'll open it up. We have no, Lucy, any public comment that has come in on 8D?
No, sir, no public comment for 8D.
All right, back to the board for a motion on 8D.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve item 8D.
Second.
Second by Mr. O'Brien, motion by Commissioner Hanson. Okay, again, back to the board. Any further discussion on the motion on the table? I see no hands raised. With that, so I'll bring it back to the board for a vote on item 8D. I just want to make sure application, I have it as 3203, request for final approval and acceptance of performance and maintenance bonds for Las Vegas and Matanzas Shores subdivision. With that, I'll poll the board again for approval or denial. Commissioner Erickson.
Aye.
Commissioner Hanson.
Aye.
Commissioner Mullins.
Aye.
And myself, I say aye. So 8D is approved unanimously. We'll go on
Commissioner,
now.
you didn't poll me, this Commissioner O'Brien.
I'm sorry. I thought I did. Commissioner O'Brien, excuse me.
Aye.
All right. We now have it unanimously approved. All right. What happens when your pictures aren't up there? It confuses me. But anyway, okay. With that, we go on to item 9, which is public hearings. And I had one item that was put forward that I want to mention, and then we'll go on with any other items from Lucy. Importantly, the county wants to make sure that during these terrible times where businesses are closing and so on and so forth, that we as a county are doing everything we can possibly do to make sure that Flagler businesses remain open if possible, but also remain intact for the future. So a number of people, and this is being organized by a number of people, but on the staff, it's Kat Friel, who along with other members of the community, and specifically the Chimento law firm has taken a lead on this and has designated Art Zimmett, an expert in their office, to get up to speed, which he is, on the whole subject of the Paycheck Protection Program and what business can do to make sure they can stay in business. He's being supported by Amy Stafford from the chamber. Our IT team, headed by Jared Shoup and Carlos, Mike Chimento is involved, and of course, our county administrator, Jerry Cameron. But the point of this is we're planning to have a webinar seminar using our technical capabilities to get it out as many of the small, this is for the businesses of business community, not for the general public. This is how to apply for these small business loans. That'll take place as a webinar at 1 p.m. on this coming Wednesday. Things are changing a little bit, but Kat Friel, and I'll give you her phone number, 386-313-4070, is honchoing this here on the staff. She's doing a great job. She's being in contact with our local businesses to make sure they understand how to take care of this program approved at the federal level. The Paycheck Protection Program will use local banks, national banks, whatever. The process is supposed to go fairly quickly, and we'll be following up on that. So I wanted to let the other commissioners know, they may already, that we're doing this. And if you had any questions, I think we'll get back to our county administrator right now. I don't know if Kat's on the line or not, but in any event, this is a good thing that we as commissioners are doing, because if we don't have our businesses stay in business, we're going to be in deep trouble here in the county. So with that, and I don't know of any other public hearings going on. So if anybody wants to comment on that now, go ahead.
Just a clarification, David.
Yes.
Michael Senior, Michael Junior.
Junior.
Junior. Okay.
But the person who's going to be the action person is his employee named Art Zeman, who's a real
Yeah,
expert.
I know him, yes.
Yeah, okay, all right, yes. Anybody else want to comment on that? That's coming out, there'll be messages and so forth. Mr. Cameron. Mr. Cameron, I had his hand raised, and then you, Joe.
Okay, didn't know if you could see, if I had my video.
I didn't see. So you, go ahead, Mr. Cameron. No, I can't hear Mr. Cameron. Now I can.
Excuse me. This is just to reinforce what you said. One of our primary goals for sustaining business and the recovery phase is to give them every opportunity to know what's available under these new bills that are being passed and how to access those and how to work with creditors in the meantime. So it's a great thing that you're doing, Mr. Chairman, to help get this organized and sort of be the vanguard of it. We really need to make sure that our economy is not damaged any more than that's absolutely necessary.
Right, and thank you. There are meetings. There are meetings going on with this. There'll be one today for the participants for a run through, but I'm not going to go into those details here. I just wanted to make all our citizens aware that we're doing everything we can to help our small businesses in the county here to take advantage of these programs that sometimes present some conflict. People having not conflict, but just the details of how to get it done. So I think it's a good thing, and we'll continue on with that. And Kat Friel from our office here, from the staff, is helping coordinate that. With that, I'm going to go down to, Mr. Mullins, you had a comment.
No, I just want to thank you for taking that initiative. These businesses are really scared right now. They've been reaching out a lot. I've been doing shows continually on them and speaking to them about the stimulus, but they need the help and the guidance. So I want to thank you for taking that initiative.
Right. Well, we want to thank the law firm and Kat and Chamber, everybody who's involved with this, and it couldn't be done without our technology here to get the information out as we're doing with this virtual meeting today. Mr. Charlie Erickson, did you have?
No, I'll take the hand down.
Okay, I'm watching. With that, I want to go on to, I don't think we have any other, no public hearing, so we'll go on to agenda item 10, additional reports and comments, and we'll start with 10A, County Administrator, reports and comment.
Thank you, sir. I only have a couple of things. One is you remember that you made a decision on the old Ops Center to proceed with marketing it, and in the event that we were not able to find a buyer for it, to demolish it, and we were to accomplish that within 90 days or so. Well, obviously the COVID virus has made it very difficult to market. You can't really get out and show it, and it has also delayed a lot of our staff that have been consumed with other things, including the sheriff's staff that needed to get records out of there and so forth. His additional duties in this crisis have slowed him up. I took the liberty of postponing the 90-day window that the commission had set up for us, and to delay it until we can restart the clock after the crisis is over. And since that was an official action of the board, I need ratification for my action on that.
So we need a motion to ratify County Administrator's extension of 90 days concerning the old Ops Center status, either sale or demolish. Do I have a motion on that?
Well, first, Mr. Chairman, how much time does he need? How much do how much do you want to extend it for, Jerry?
It's unknown as to how long the crisis will last. We arrested it at about the 45-day point, And so as soon as the crisis is passed and the governor's orders on doing business have been rescinded or have expired, we'd restart the clock at that point. It'd be about 45 days from then.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I move that we give the chairman an extension on his requirement to sell the building until such time as we are relieved from this crisis.
We have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
He meant to say the county administrator, not the.
Yeah, county administrator.
Okay,
Thank you.
As corrected. Is there a second on that motion?
second.
Okay, second by Mr. Erickson. Any further discussion on that? Any further discussion on that? I see no one raising their hands. Bring it back to the board for a vote. The motion on the floor is to support the county administrator's request for an extension as stated by Commissioner Hanson. All those in favor signify by saying aye. I will ask you, Mr. O'Brien,
Aye.
Mr. Erickson,
Aye.
Mr. Hanson,
Aye.
Mr. Mullins,
Aye.
and I say aye. That passes unanimously. Mr. Cameron, please go on.
Okay, the next is just an update on the Plantation Bay Utilities and FGUA transaction. As you know, that one of our stumbling blocks was the $6 million acquisition that we made that did not translate into a valuation on the utility itself. Fortunately, through work with the DEP, work with FGUA, that we have gotten that liability down to about $500,000, and that is going to make this a feasible transaction. So just wanted to give you an update that we are proceeding with that, and that we expect that we'd be able to bring something back to you within the next 45 days or so to go ahead and make that transaction official.
Okay. Sounds fine. The commissioners, any reaction to that? Plantation Bay has been a big issue, or our attorney. If not, I'll go on. We'll go on. I see no one raising their hand, so we'll go on. Are you completed then, Mr. Cameron?
No remarks, sir.
Okay, doke. Our county attorney report comments from Mr. Al-Hadid.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I have 2 items to report to the board on. Let me pick up from the theme that you started with, the beach, the agenda item and the reading of comments, etc. Let me give you an update on the Dunes project. Very quickly, we are completing all of the requirements by the DEP for the erosion control line. A hearing was held at the end of last week. And so that is underway to have those finalized, and the erosion control line will be recorded in the public records of Flagler County. It will fix the boundaries in the Army Corps and the non-federal portion of the beach work we do, the dividing line between state-owned property and private-owned property. Second, we are presently working on finalizing a lease with the United States Department of Interior for additional sand that we will need for the non-federal project. That would be those areas north of South 6th Street in Flagler Beach. That lease is for 1.8 million cubic yards of sand taken from an offshore site owned by the United States of America. Based on the bid values that we were quoted for what we had to pay for sand from Putnam County, the dollar value of this contribution to Flagler County is $25.5 million. This is in addition to the 550,000 cubic yards that we are getting from the same borrow site under a lease and agreement that we've already done with the Department of Interior for 550,000 cubic yards. And the value of that is $7.8 million. So these are very significant contributions to our efforts. As for the dunes, I want to thank very much the county engineer. We are faced with the coronavirus interfering with our ability to procure easements. And she was able to explain that situation to the Army Corps of Engineers, and they have given us a 90-day extension. So we're going to make good use of that. Even with the impediments that we've had because of the virus, the state of emergency, we've been able to get 9 easements in from Virginia, West Virginia, Massachusetts, Boca Raton, a few Flagler Beach residents that were able to get their easements in despite the challenges. We have 92 parcels where we have secured easements. We have 24 in process. They have various paperwork issues or specific things that we have to resolve. Those two numbers, that gives us 80% of what we need. We have 27 more easement properties to acquire, and we'll be working on that. We're going to need to partner very much with the city of Flagler Beach to help us bring those in. Now, I just want to, before I end the report, echo the sentiments that some of you made about other aspects of the work that we've been doing. This is an incredible bargain for Flagler County and the city of Flagler Beach to undertake this work. The amount of dollars and resources that we have been able to amass, obviously I just referenced the sand. We earlier talked about the $6 million that FDOT is providing for the local match, the over $11 million that the Army Corps is providing for its portion of the work, and potentially the Department of Environmental Protection to give us funds to do Gamble Rogers, and FDOT giving us funding to do the non-federal portion. This is an unbelievable achievement in intergovernmental financing of probably the most important public works project we will ever undertake in our history. So with that, I'll end that report and then go to a more technical aspect, which the chair mentioned at the outset in his comments, and that is the background of the virtual meeting order. As the board members know, but this is for the benefit of the public and also for the benefit of our public record. The governor issued an executive order that modified for local governments the sunshine law requirements under the emergency and gave us the authority to conduct virtual meetings and to define how we do that. The particular statute that we were supposed to use in order to accomplish that was a provision from Florida's Administrative Procedure Act, which we did do. On April 1 of 2020, last week, we entered an emergency order under the emergency procedures of the Administrative Procedure Act in order to have virtual meetings. We have reproduced that emergency order. It is in the agenda backup. If anybody wants to see it there, or obviously they can email the county and we'll provide it to them. They'll also be able to get it from the clerk if they wish. So it is generally available. Consistent, now what did we decide to do? Consistent with the evolution of our emergency orders, with our public education campaign to be very aggressive in social distancing and not create situations where there's a potential compromise of public health and safety, as reflected in our promotional program of Stay Home, Stay Alive, beginning with closing our buildings, authorizing electronic signatures on documents so we don't have to meet face-to-face, the remote virtual meetings that we have had with staff. We've been doing that for 2 weeks. I think that was mentioned earlier. The fact that we've closed the beaches and the parks to accomplish those objectives of aggressive social distancing, we decided to go completely virtual. There is no meeting room today. The meeting room is this virtual meeting space, and there is nobody that is in the government chambers as a part of this effort. So we are doing it completely remotely in order to protect everyone's health. We have maximized the ways in which the public can follow the proceedings here and provided open channels for those members of the public to provide their comments, all of which will be put into the record of the clerk and will be available, obviously, for the public at a later time to access. The order was adopted. It was ratified by the board on today's meeting at an earlier agenda item, 7B, B as in boy. So we are continuing with this mode. Just looking at it, participating in it for myself as legal counsel, it is proceeding in a way that is consistent with the Sunshine Law and the governor's executive order, as well as the statutes that govern how we proceed. We have discussed this on the Florida Association of County Attorneys. We have had lengthy discussions about this, a lot of exchange, and what we are doing is generally consistent with what other counties are doing. I will just mention it just so the board knows. Some counties are trying to do hybrid meetings, that is partially in a meeting room, partial people attending, partial public attending, and the rest of it virtual, but it has presented some problems for those governments. In the discussions that we had, that is internally among the emergency management director, the county administrator, and the others who worked on this decision, the IT department, obviously, we've decided to go this way, and it is my recommendation, and I support the direction that we are proceeding. And unless there are any questions, that ends my report.
Thank you, Mr. Hadid. Can you still hear me?
Yes, sir, I can.
Okay, I've lost video, but we can keep going here. Lucy Dance, any additional community outreach participants?
Yes, Chairman. We've had some additional comments regarding the beach closures. Still, they're echoing the sentiment that they want you to reconsider them to allow for mental health, walking, running, swimming, fishing, surfing, all while maintaining social distancing. And they're also asking that you could give some special consideration based on where people live. So that's all for the beaches. I also received an email from David Panillo. He said he would like to know if the administrator or Board of County Commissioners are looking at specific data or events to occur before opening the beaches, at least for exercise or at least for county residents. He's heard that he hears that you are monitoring the situation, but doesn't understand exactly what that means. He's wanting to know if you're playing it by ear or having a plan. And then again, more of the beach, asking to open the beach. And that's all for public comment.
All right, thank you, Lucy. Mr. Cameron, did you want any additional comments on the beach or not?
Certainly. We do review that every single day, and it is, again, not a simple solution. And we have to look at what other counties are doing, how that might impact us, what enforcement problems that come up with various scenarios. And the criteria that we look at is primarily the increase or decrease in cases. When cases drop down to an acceptable level, which is the level that we initially implemented this, when we get down to case levels, new cases of less than 10, then we start to consider some alternatives. But just considering this, that you will maintain social distancing and you will do what is proper, does not cover the considerations that we have. We have to consider other people coming in because most of the beaches are closed or restricted, and their behavior and the lack of access points for us along the beaches for our enforcement people and the number of enforcement people that would be required to maintain social distancing. Those things are considered and discussed on a daily basis, and we rely heavily on what law enforcement is observing, and we rely heavily on the trajectory of the disease.
All right, thank you, Mr. Cameron. We're now, so there's no additional community outreach. We're down to item 10D, commission reports, commission comments or action. I'll start with Mr. Erickson.
Can you hear me now, Dave?
Yes, I've lost video, so I'm just doing it by voice.
Okay. Okay. I'd just like to put a big shout out though to all the Flagler County employees for the extra effort they've been putting in over these periods of time. There's a couple of little groups that we don't hear too much of, but they're still up and operational. The Employee Health Clinic, and also last week, of course, we finalized the election in the election office, and those people were still working in there. But thanks to all the employees that are putting in this extra effort over this shutdown. That's it, David.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Erickson. Commissioner Hanson, and thank you especially for leading the canvassing board effort here that was very successful. So go ahead, if you would, Greg.
Yeah, I'd just like to report on that, Mr. Chairman. The canvassing board was very successful. We certified the election, and then we audited our findings, and everything came out as you would expect. With the supervisor of election, everything came out fine. But credit to Judge Dissler and Katie Lenhart, the SOE, for their job in the canvassing board. It was a very successful effort. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Mullins.
Yeah, I've got a couple of things just real quick. You know, I want people to kind of really think about, they're wanting to restrict people from the area, especially some northern states and Louisiana, yet we're talking about opening amenities, which I think draws them in. And one thing people aren't looking at, these sheriff employees, to ask them to patrol this at this time, we're putting them in more harm's way. I like the idea of them patrolling an empty beach from a distance, telling people to come off of it. Whereas if they're on a crowded beach or a beach where people start flocking to, that's going to put them in harm's way. And we got to keep the first responders, you know, in consideration as well. Just want to say, addition, that we are going to be, you know, the roads. I've been talking to a lot of people out west about the Mahogany. It's still still on par to go. We're just trying to get through this moment. Also want to again reiterate, thank you for doing the business town hall. That's important to these businesses. And Commissioner O'Brien, the census, I've heard a lot of people talking about seeing stuff that you've posted about filling out the census and doing that and the importance of it. So that's, just wanted to mention that to you. Also, I wanted to talk about something real quick and possibly just put in an action item. When I was in DC a few weeks ago, this was the second time I went up there this year, or for the annual legislation conference for NACO, which I serve on a couple of national, I'm vice chair of some national committees, the telecom and then also public safety. But this year was a little different. We had a lot of work by a lobbyist that I was introduced to, Josh Gabaton, and he actually helped us orchestrate getting the meetings with Medicare, Medicaid to be able to get the $3 million back, approximately $3 million. and just phenomenal work. It was night and day difference having him guide me through this year with meetings and important stuff as far as USDA, as far as Department of Economic Opportunity, the Army Corps about some projects that we're needing to get pushed. He has been instrumental in just working kind of pro bono with us. He also provided a very strong overview of the federal stimulus that I had received and Kat had received, about how to go after it and just detail and some of the stuff that put us ahead of people. So I'd like to defer over to the county manager to talk a little bit about that experience, but by no means do I want to take anything from our congressmen or our senators that helped with it, but he was like putting gas on the fire and making it happen. And I'd like to just, County Administrator, if you, Mr. Cameron, if you've got anything you'd like to add to it. Josh was just phenomenal, and I think we need that presence up there to get that federal money back.
Go ahead, Mr. Cameron.
Well, certainly with all of the issues that we have that require some sort of federal support, we do need a lobbyist. Mr. Gabatin originally helped me pro bono with regard to the Medicare issue because I had worked with him previously when I was in St. Johns County. He is extremely effective at getting to the right people, and that's exactly what he did on the Medicare issue. He put me in front of the very people that had made the decisions that were not in our favor, and as a consequence, we were able to get those decisions reversed. You've got Army Corps, you've got USDA issues, and knowing who the current staffers and bureaucrats that are in position here and having access to them is critical. And it's particularly critical when either, as Commissioner Mullins said, he went, or when other members of our board go to Washington to be able to facilitate the time that they have up there. And I certainly would be supportive of getting some representation in Washington.
Thank you. Okay, it's back to me.
I got one more thing. I wanted to see if we could make a motion to let the manager go ahead and get someone like him, because we're going to need a lot of federal support there. So I'd like to turn around and make a motion with that we proceed in acquiring this, the lobbyist to help us with our federal lobbying.
Mr. Adid, this would involve money. Don't we have to maybe do it at the next session?
It would be better to do it the next session. I think what Mr. Mullins may wish to do is get a consensus from the board that Mr. Cameron work this up so that it is before the board at its next meeting.
As I say, I've lost video, so to the other commissioners, just be polite. And I'll start with Mr. Erickson on consensus to task Mr. Cameron to go forward with that.
Yes, I would agree with Mr. Cameron doing the discussions.
All right, Mr. Hanson?
Go forward. It's critical what this individual would charge us. They can be very expensive and sometimes they're very reasonable, but Mr. Cameron should have the flexibility to go up and see what he can get done.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes, I would agree that we need to look at it, and I would like to have it as soon as possible at the next meeting if we can.
And Mr. Mullins, I suspect you agree.
I do. I agree.
Okay. All right. I want to keep moving here. Mr. O'Brien, any of your commissioner report, comments, actions?
Yes, sir. A couple things. As Commissioner Mullins said, talked about the census. I did see some numbers from our census contact, Nadine, that our county was one of the highest in the state of Florida for initial response rate online. So I would just encourage everyone to continue. If we can continue that momentum, that would be great. And I appreciate the staff's work with the messaging that we've been doing and all our partners on that. Secondly, on the small business side, you know, I'm on the trenches out there every day talking with a lot of my clients, and I can tell you it's a really, really tough situation, and we are going to lose businesses over this. I think we all know that, but as fast as we can, you know, try to turn this around, again, I'm not saying it's something everybody else doesn't know, but I would encourage those business owners to participate with their local lenders and with our community partner resources, with the chamber, economic and the city to try to take advantage of these programs that are out there. And I would also say, look through your regular P&L and call everybody that you can, anyone that's a vendor, anyone that you have to pay money to, because so many different entities are given breaks or deferring things like insurance payments or utility payments and loan payments. So if you're a small business owner, don't leave any stone unturned. Go to every direction you can to try to preserve cash flow, because you know, to the extent that we can keep people on payroll and keep these businesses so that they can come back, because it will turn around, but we got to be able to survive. And then most importantly, as Commissioner Erickson said, I want to thank the staff and this great county team that we have. I'm so thankful for the folks that we have in leadership and all of our folks throughout the whole organization. Everybody's doing a yeoman job and stepping up, and I'm proud to be part of that. And lastly, Mr. Chairman, I just want to thank you. This is a tough situation to chair a meeting in. You know, those of us that have done this is not an easy situation. So thank you to you for getting this done.
All right, thank you very much. My comments are real brief. First of all, again, to the staff, you're doing a fantastic job under very, very, very difficult situation. And we're hoping that you can continue to do it, starting with our county administrator, our health department head, Bob Snyder, and of course, Mr. Lord, our emergency manager and director. But I wanted to kind of close this with a comment I made earlier this week, back to the coronavirus itself and to anybody who listens to this. This is, in fact, a silent war. I've made this point before. We're all in it. We're all members of the military, or like being members of the military. And the orders we have, starting with the federal government on down, is social distancing. Obey the rules. You cannot be an individual in this case. We have to work together. So remember social distancing. Nothing has changed on that. Your team here at the county is doing everything they possibly can to get us through this with as little damage as possible. But there is damage, and there's no doubt about it. So think of yourself as a foot soldier out there doing your job, and that means social distancing and obeying the various orders that come down from on high. So with that, I thank everybody for participating and supporting this. It is a little more difficult way of doing business, but we got a lot accomplished today, and I thank the other board members for helping me on that. And with that, I'm going to ask for an adjournment motion.
I move we adjourn.
Somebody say second.
Second.
We're adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Happy Easter to everybody.